This is very important for your exam also. How many of you heard about this particular concept of what is called as hate speech? Has anyone heard of the concept what is called as hate speech? Very, very important topic. Please listen to me. Have you ever come across of what is called as hate speech? What do you know about this hate speech? In which context have you heard of this hate speech? Even now it was very popular because in the elections also there were many politicians today. They were trying to divide the people on the basis of religion or for that matter the other things. So all these things could be considered what is called as hate speech. So how would you define the hate speech? So why I am asking this particular question is today there is no proper definition for hate speech. It's only the Law Commission of India which has given some form of definition to hate speech. Now, how this hate speech is related to right to freedom of speech and expression? What is the relation between them? How is this hate speech related to the concept of right to freedom of speech and expression? Okay, so you mean to say that people can use their right to freedom of speech and expression to engage in what is called as hate speech. So that my question is, in the name of right to freedom of speech and expression, can they engage in what is called as hate speech? That's my question. Or in other words, does the right to freedom of speech and expression protects hate speech? Suppose if I do some hate speech, let us assume hate speech in general, you assume that any form of speech, not necessarily in the form of words, it can be in form of writing or representation or signs, but the speech, the intention is to try to create some kind of hatred between different sections of the society. What is the underlying idea behind that particular speech? If I make a speech tomorrow, but I'm trying to divide different sections of the society. It can be on the basis of religion, it can be on the basis of caste, it can be on the basis of sexual orientation, it can be on the basis of residence, it can be on the basis of language, so on and so forth. But I'm trying to divide or trying to bring in disharmony between different sections of the people, then such a speech is what is called as hate speech. Two questions I wanted to put across all to you. If somebody engages in hate speech, can he seek protection that it is part of his right to freedom of speech and expression? That's my first question. Now, the second question is, if somebody engages in hate speech, will it have any impact on the public order in our country? Can it have any impact on the public order? Can it affect the law and order situation in our country? So try to understand, that means public order is a ground on which reasonable restrictions can be imposed. So if somebody is trying to engage in what is called as hate speech, reasonable restrictions can be exercised on that part of the right to freedom of speech and expression. Or in other words, somebody who is engaging in hate speech cannot seek protection that he is exercising what? His right to freedom of speech and expression, because hate speech is not protected. Because hate speech can lead to what? What could be the consequence? It can lead to disturbance to the public order. It can lead to incitement of an offense against one against the another. So hate speech is not protected, or it is not covered under the right to freedom of speech and expression. So now what does it mean by hate speech? So first, generally you have to understand, because hate speech have an impact on what is called as the public order in a place, in a society. And public order is a ground on which reasonable restrictions can be imposed. Now the question is, I said that the reasonable restrictions can be imposed only by a way of a law. So what is the law that we have to deal with hate speech? That's the question. Can anyone tell me that, okay, these are the laws in our country to deal with or to punish someone who has engaged in what is called as hate speech? Now, how many of you are aware that there's something which is called as religious parliament, which has recently happened in some of the states, especially in states like Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand. In these states, there was something which is called as religious parliament. Religious parliament means that the people who are doing some religious or associated themselves with some religious institutions, they conduct some meeting and they discuss about the propagation of the religion. So unfortunately, what has happened in some of the religious meetings, religious parliaments, which has happened in, say, Western Uttar Pradesh, or for that matter, Uttarakhand, in the recent past, in the last 1 or 2 years, in some of the states like Himachal Pradesh as well, openly they have spread hatred against the minorities in our country. In fact, they have gone to that extent that everybody should say the name of the Hindu god, otherwise the others who are not preaching that particular name should be sent out of India. And openly they have called for attacks upon the minorities. Now, can this be seen as a hate speech? Is it trying to create communal disharmony between different sections of the people on the basis of religion? So unfortunately, despite such resolutions being passed in these religious meetings, the law and order, that is the state police, has not taken any action. Subsequently, PIL was filed. I hope you understand the concept of PIL. We already seen the definition of all those things. Public interest litigation, that not necessarily someone affected brings this to the matter of the bring this to the notice of the court, any interested party. So some PIL has been filed in the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court has to summon the chief secretaries of the respective states. I hope you understand who is the chief secretary. What is your understanding of the word chief secretary? He is a senior most government officer in a particular state government. I'm not saying the political executive, among the permanent executive. So the chief secretaries were summoned, and the Supreme Court asked, okay, so and so speeches are happening, hate speech, why didn't you take action against them? And then some of the chief secretaries said there's no complaint that is filed. So normally the police cannot act without a complaint. So they said that there's no complaint that is filed, so how do you expect us to act? So they're trying to take such a protection, wherein this is a very important direction that is given by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that you don't have to wait for a complaint when it comes to hate speech, because hate speech is a very severe crime in our society. So the police can act or file suo motu complaint when it comes to hate speech. What does it mean by suo motu? On its own. Okay, so they can file a suo motu complaint based on the newspaper reports and all those things. You file a complaint, investigate, and if there's a prima facie evidence, proceed with that case. This is one direction that is given by the Supreme Court recently with regard to the hate speech. Now, my question is, what are the laws we have with regard to the hate speech? Does anyone know what is the law we have with regard to the hate speech? Because hate speech is a very, very important topic. Do you have any laws as of now? I mean, do we have a separate law when it comes to hate speech? A specific law? Say, for example, right to information, we have a specific law. So, do we have any specific law for hate speech, which only deals with hate speech? Do you have a specific law? As of now, we do not have a specific law. It is only the law in different acts that deals with what is called as hate speech. Majorly, some of the provisions of IPC. Okay, so you can just make a note also. If you talk of the Indian Penal Code, there are certain specific provisions like section 153A, and then you have section 295A, and then you have section 123A of Representation of People's Act, RPA 1951, etc. There are a lot of other provisions also. These are all some of the provisions that deals with what is called as hate speech. Now, what these provisions primarily talk about? Section 153A is talking about that any speech which is trying to promote disharmony between different sections of the society on the grounds of religion, race, caste, and so on, so thing, where if it is proved in a court of law, they can be punished up to a maximum of 3 years. What is section 295A is talking about? Section 295A is talking about hurting the religious sentiments of different religious communities. So specifically talking ill of one's religion or the religious belief. That's a punishable offense under section 295A. Can anyone tell me what is the section 123A of Representation of People Act? So in fact, this is a severe criticism because even our Prime Minister of India has spoken. So there's an allegation that he has spoken on the name of religion during his political election rallies recently, that he was trying to divide the votes in the names of religion. If somebody tried to polarize people in the name of religion during the political process, that is especially at the time of elections, that's a ground for their disqualification even from contesting election on the grounds of Representation of People Act, that is section 123A of 1951. Now, how many of you heard why there's a lot of criticism against the Election Commission of India today? The criticism is that they are asking that why the Election Commission of India is not acting. Not only against the Prime Minister, anybody who is engaging in such things, they do have the powers even to disqualify them under section 123 of the Representation of People Act 1951. And the punishment can be such, they can be disqualified for another 6 years from contesting election if they are disqualified. So there are provisions, but although we do not have a separate law as such for what is called as the hate speech. Now, how many of you do agree that yes, hate speech is a very important crime? I mean, especially for a country like India, with people from different culture, different language, hate speech is something which is very, very important, which is not covered under what is called as the right to freedom of speech and expression. Okay.